Next
Now,
manga.
is this gonna get worst scores from you? It's gonna get worse scores from me for sure because
In
it's
this issue,
Earthchild.
definitely. This is a 0. This is
Earthchild. What did I say for it? I said, I gave it +1 for having teasers about the future that make me think that it's going to end soon.
Actually, I would say that might. Do you remember? No, you don't probably remember. Do you remember?
That's probably a good guess.
What was it called? I Tell C.
I do not remember that at all.
That's the that got canceled pretty quickly.
Okay,
but it had it got a second
What's
win.
The premise? Yeah.
A police detective who has the habit, a female police detective who has the habit of falling in love with the culprits. Because she always feels so.
I do remember you telling me about this. I never read it.
She pities them so much that she falls in love with them, and through her love, she always finds the culprit out.
Yeah.
And
imagine if one of the culprits is like the guy from the first chapter of Super Smartphone.
She does that. She does that.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
she still loves him.
Well, and then they arrest the guy, and then you can like, just gloss over the fact that she was totally DTF with that guy. She can just move on to the next one, but like the whole premise was it was broken from the start.
Yes, yeah.
And somehow,
but how did it get a second wind?
Somehow they seem to be. They probably were in danger like immediately. It didn't take off, and they started to get into a story arc that like seemed to be like one case that might stretch over 2 chapters, but then at the end of the conclusion of that case, where they were in a secluded inn, where a murderer happens to show up.
The killer.
Yeah, literally the killer shows up, and then it turns out that one guy who stayed with them at the inn is also the killer.
Oh no!
And he kills one of the police detectives, like one of the main characters. And
what a twist!
And he's like, "Ha ha ha, girl detective. I've teased you before, and now I'm going to tease you again." And then he vanishes. And the first killer who killed people in the inn shows up and kind of gets a weird moment where he can redeem himself by sacrificing himself for, I think, the other cop or something. But no, maybe for the girl, because she left the
was it that shock second killer is what gave it a second wind?
Yes, and
thinking about that is what's making you afraid that Earthchild is going to get a second wind.
Yeah, because like the aftermath of one of the main characters, one of the main cops, because she had this duo of brother cops with her, and that kind of made it feel like these 3 would be the main characters for the whole time. And one of them dying completely ruined the initial chemistry that they had, and always had this kind of like bitter aftertaste. Because like, oh no, we can't goof off anymore because my brother is dead.
Got serious after that.
So then they introduced like I think the dad of the girl is like one of the police chief type guys, and he's giving her. Like he says he just single-handedly sentences her to death, and then it was just a test, and then they do some other stupid stuff, and then somehow they do a flash forward, like, and now this is like, oh, this was just a prologue. It was planned this way all along, and then it gets a second wind where it's like let's say a few years in the future, and then they have some goofy cases again, and it kind of got a second wind in that sense, and like,
Mhm.
oh, this was the premise. We kind of strayed from
Right.
it, in because we were afraid of getting canceled, and then
Yeah.
we made everything
But we got
bad. So
another
let's restart it one more time.
got
And
a
I
new
think this is what's
premise.
happening here.
Mhm.
I think this is what's
'cause-
happening here.
Because the way I was reading this, I'd remembered from before, early on, like chapter 2 or something.
Yeah.
Then there started to have some lines that were from future Mamoru.
Yes.
And from that point, I was like, oh, so this manga is going to have a time skip and be about him as a kid having to learn about how to use his superpowers. And then they didn't do it at all, which actually like quite disappointed me, because I was like, it would have been probably more, definitely would have been more interesting, this never-ending space
Absolutely.
arc. And then this week, I feel like it's been like 10 chapters or more that they haven't done that at all. Suddenly it's back, and it's back in such a big way. They even have flash forward pages where he's like, how old is he? 6?
6,
flash
even though he looks
forward
like he's at least
5
13,
years
so.
in the future. And he says, I'm an Earthchild. And also, one thing I really didn't like about the flash forward
is that the astronaut
he's hanging out with the dumb astronaut in a museum. And I was reading that like, they're showing him with her because they're trying to keep us in suspense, so that
about whether the dad and Albert will
going
die.
to survive? Is Reisuke going to survive? Is Albert going to survive? Because if it showed
that's exactly
with
what they're doing.
With another Earthchild or with his dad, then it would be like, oh yeah, they're going to be fine. So then they instead show him with the astronaut, and I'm like, I don't think that they would become friends. And I don't like seeing more of her. It's not a good character.
Yeah. That's exactly what they're doing here.
Yeah, it's just it's one of those things where you see a scene and you can instantly be like, I feel that they are showing it this way not because it fits in the story, but because it's a way to cause suspense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like it.
So, they are canceling the rescue mission. Like back in the present, they're canceling the rescue mission because the space dust is approaching.
Too much. They got so surprised by this massive meteorite storm.
And then Kara gives Reisuke this farewell monologue, like, it's time to say goodbye, and you're my family, and I wish I could have seen Mamoru grow up and stuff, and all of those moments that we had or that we could have had. Yeah. And then and you see her already getting like headshot by all of the meteorite dust. So like she should be
dead.
pretty dead now.
Yeah.
Right? And then Reisuke is like, no, wait.
We're going back out there.
One more try without the baby.
But Mamoru fell asleep. Yeah, so Mamoru fell asleep because it was so tiring to go do the peekaboo thing.
Yeah,
and then he's like, I'm gonna try it again with Albert. Even though we already saw back on Earth, Albert was like, it's actually hard for me to lift ants right now. So
no, that was because
useful.
No, that was because Albert can
it's very distance limited, right?
It's because he
was lifting people in the same room, but he's like, if something's far away, then
no. It's because he lifted everybody in the room. That used up all of his energy, and then he only had left to like lift an ant.
Oh, I thought it was a distance thing. Like I can only lift people if they're really close to me.
Probably both.
But in any case, he is way less powerful with his abilities than Mamoru is. Because he's like, they say that the Earthchild once you do your main mission that you were born for, then your powers decline.
Yeah.
And he's like, 2 generations of Earthchild back. So he's been declining for a while now. But
for years.
Yeah, for years he's been in decline.
Decades.
For decades he's been in decline. This unnaturally young teacher here. But he's going to go out there and he's going to do it somehow. And yeah, I did go through and count the chapters, and this is Kareri Retrieval Arc Week 10.
Fuck.
Yeah, we've had a lot of it. Yeah, it is.
Feels like 15.
I know, it feels like even more.
Wait, how many?
Oh, no. It's, I think...
Oh, this is chapter 16. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, it's that before that, then we were thinking, oh, this is going to be mostly about him raising the kid, because before that, they had told him, like, oh, don't even bother. And it was after chapter 5, at the very end of it, is when he was playing with Mamoru,
Space Rock, and
then the waste guy with glasses, who's like has a hard on for memory erasure, calls him and is like, come to HQ, we can get Kareri down from space after all. So that was when the Kareri retrieval arc began, and it's still going on, and 10 chapters later.
So that has become the majority of the runtime of Earthchild. So the initial premise, not only first it goes through the Mago-chan speedrun.
Yes.
Even the secondary premise that you think like, oh, maybe this is about just him raising a child.
Yeah, and then like
that gets ditched for a stupid space.
So let's go over the fake outs in it. Chapter 1, I think on the first few pages, we were like, this is going to be a story about a normal guy having a relationship with a superhero.
Yes.
That she goes into space, and then they do the speed run.
Yeah,
and they're
that's
like,
fake out number 1.
Okay, so fake out number 1. Fake out number 2, then we're like, oh, it's going to be about, it's going to have a time skip in the next chapter, and we're going to see the kid as a teenager learning to use his powers. And then, no, that was fake out number 2, because even though they had these little future Mamoru lines that always have the little teddy bear ears.
Back then, I remember that.
Yeah, that made us think there was going to be a time skip really quickly. Then they're like, nope, no time skip. He's a baby. So then we thought, okay, it's going to be about the dad raising a baby with superpowers as a normal person. That could be kind of interesting. Nope. So that's fake out number 3. Because then they were like, let's go to space. So there's been 3 fake outs before getting to this. And so all 3 of those previous
they had several mini fake outs.
Would have been so much better than this.
Yeah, they had many mini fake outs. Like, let's do it like this. Mm-hmm. Nope.
Yeah. Oh, actually, let's go back home.
Let's age him up. Nope.
Nope.
Let's go to space. Nope. Let's go back home.
Yeah. They just don't know what they're doing, I think. And yeah, like the early fake outs, those things all would have been a better.
It's progressively worse.
Yeah, it keeps getting worse.
With every change of direction.
Right, the thing is, if you are right, and they are going to have a second wind, but if the second wind is that they do a time skip to kid Mamoru,
6-year-old Mamoru, yeah,
like elementary school Mamoru, then it has a chance of actually being good. So I'm like, please finish this arc and go on. Otherwise, just let Hideo Shinkai go play Elden Ring.
Yeah,
let the man play Elden Ring. He's been imprisoned and making this for too long.
Yeah, maybe this has been like very elaborate cry for help. Like, please, I'm begging you.
Oh God, I didn't think Elden Ring would come out so soon. I gotta get my series canceled as fast as possible so I can go play.
Then he reads the comments of stupid foreigners like, yeah, this is so interesting. I love it. I hope it goes on for 90 more chapters. Like, no!
I'm never going to play. All right. Next, finally you got the author comments. Is there anything standing out here that you'd want to talk about?
Actually, nothing of note really. Like one thing was that the Jujutsu Kaisen author mentioned that all of the pachinko scenes were drawn by
one of his assistants, and he got his own manga now.
Yeah. Was there anything else? Let me check.
No?
Not really. Not really.
Okay. All right.
The Earthchild author got praised by somebody and was really happy about that. I don't know who that is, but like I hope it was a joke.
Oh. Do you want me to save screenshots and tell you about the latest chapter of Shoten, since I was going to do that last week?
I mean, I've read it. I know.
Would you want to cover it real quick?
Real quick, sure.
Yeah. Let me just get a few screenshots. All right, and this wasn't this week. This was, I think, 2 weeks ago.
Is it?
But I wanted
yesterday.
I want to cover it as well because I always think about it whenever I read Akane Banashi. So this is the latest chapter of Shoten. So most of it was actually a flashback to how do you pronounce their team name? Sprechchor? Say it again.
No, Sprechchor. It starts with a
Sprech.
I'll type it into the chat for you. And then how you're supposed to pronounce it.
Sprechchor. Sprechchor. Chor, not chor.
Sprechchor.
Sprechchor.
The CH is just a K in this case.
Okay. Sprechchor.
Sprechchor.
Okay. I think I got it. I'm not going to say it again.
It becomes easier if you can read it in katakana. Shupudehi koru.
How's that easier?
Because
I'm just not used to katakana still.
Okay.
Type it out in katakana. No, let's not do that. That'll take up too much time. Anyway,
I can't wait. Here, I'm already doing it.
Okay, well, I'll give the quick summary. So the Sprechchor guys, they have a flashback about when they were starting their career in high school comedy.
Yeah, and when they got the idea to do it.
They got the idea when they were sitting around drinking some Coca-Colas and eating a bunch of junk food and watching TV. They were watching this. It was the same competition, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, they were watching the very competition that they are now part of. And they're like, we should do that when we're in high school. But then they get into high school, and the tall guy, what's his name? Teta. Then he ends up becoming part of the baseball team, and he's getting hardcore hazed by his senpai.
Because he used to be so good that the team was like, we really hope you would join our team because you're so good, and we really need you to go to
we can't
nationals.
We can't make it to the nationals without you. And then he gets in, and they're like, you first year, go polish the balls.
One of the senpais is really jealous of him because, like, who's this first year thinking he is, like, being all cool and thinking he can bring us to Kochien when he's just the first year, right? So that's why he's hazing him, like making him clean everything all of the time, and
purposely knocking things over so he has more to do.
Do you know the significance of going to nationals, to Kochien?
No.
So apparently baseball is like, well, that's not the
I know
apparent
baseball is
part.
super big in
Baseball
Japan.
extremely
Yeah.
but baseball is extremely boring. Nobody like normal people don't enjoy baseball. You have to be like a hardcore baseball fan to enjoy it.
Otherwise,
So
it's one of those things where you go because you get beer and hot dogs.
yes, and that's something that was told to me like ages ago, like 84 years ago, at least. The finals of the high school teams is the one thing that's still exciting, because winning at Kochien means that you become a professional, and that means like you're made for life. This is how you become a millionaire. This is like, if you do that, that's
so
basically winning the lottery
from high school into pro leagues.
Exactly. So if you do that, it's like winning the lottery through your own merit. You're not relying on luck.
Wow.
And that's something that's realistic. So that's why
I think
people are so
that's a
gung-ho
difference
about that.
in Japan and America, because I know that most American pro sports teams, they draw mostly from college teams and not high school teams. Probably because there's just too damn many high school teams around the country to follow.
Yeah, but like, aren't you at your prime when you're 18?
I think that it's probably like
College
for some things you're at your prime for that, but a lot of the really popular sports like football are very strategic. So they're like, oh, if you have more, having a couple years more than your physical decline is not enough to counteract the increase in knowledge of the game. That's my guess about it.
You really need knowledge, not just raw power.
I'm sure it depends on the different positions.
They should genetically engineer the perfect football player, and it's just
that reminds me of I forget who it was. I remember some comedian talking about when there was all of because there were a few years where there's just like constantly scandals about various pro athletes having all of the
what's his name? Dogfight Man.
No, not stuff like that. Scandals like using performance-enhancing drugs.
That on top of the Dogfight Man.
Yeah, and there's some comedian talking about it, saying that there's so many rules against it, but there's so many people who still try. So what they should do, instead of like just kicking those people out for life, they should have
make a league where
they should have a league where you're allowed to cheat, and if you get caught, they're just like, well, sit out for this game and find a way to cheat next time.
No, they should
be like a manga. Just everyone can cheat.
They should make a league where you could use as many like steroids.
Have you seen? There's this YouTuber who makes weird things, and he made a shotgun baseball bat where
I haven't seen that, but I'm interested.
As soon as you hit the ball, then there's a shotgun shell in it that supposedly will increase the speed of your swing so much to launch the ball way further. So imagine like guys who are throwing the ball at like 200 miles an hour with I don't know, maybe that's a normal speed. What's the speed of a baseball that they throw? They throw them
very fast.
So imagine them throwing it even
like
faster.
140 miles per hour.
Throwing really, really fast. And then on the other side, there's a guy with a shotgun shell baseball bat hitting it, and it just goes flying away.
Just give him a rocket mallet.
Yeah, rocket mallets. Put in what's his name? Daisuke Ito. Put in Ito from Battle Angel Alita.
I don't know that one.
Baseball bat out of there. Oh, have you never seen it or read it?
No.
Okay,
I was making a Kirby reference.
Okay. Oh yeah. Well, but that's just a normal mallet wielded by a weird creature.
Yeah, but if he powers it up, it becomes a rocket powered mallet.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Because in Battle Angel Alita, then she gets the guy who rebuilds her is a cyber doctor who can rebuild cyborgs, but he has a second job. And his second job is as a bounty hunter, hunter killer, I think they call them. But anyway, his weapon of choice is a rocket hammer.
Yeah. Does he do that in the movie, or was that too silly?
He does have it in the movie, yes. He has it in the movie, but he only has one fight scene in the movie, and he loses just to give so Alita can get her moment to shine.
Nice.
Yeah, because if they adapted everything from the first arc, then the movie would be like 5 hours long. So they just cut things down, make things quick. Anyway, so I like the way that the longer hair guy figures out a way to get his buddy out of baseball.
That was really good.
It was really fun. He's like, he goes up to challenge the baseball senpai, saying, "I'll take you all at once, and if I win, you gotta let him leave the team." And he gets his ass totally kicked. And his friend even points out, like, "Man, you folded so quickly. You're so bad at fighting." But it turns out it's because he put his phone behind him, and he recorded it all and blackmailed them that they can't let.
I mean, that's totally him, because he announced that he's an asshole, and that Teta is the one who's like too nice for his own good.
Teta is basically Gorilla Gachi from Roboco.
Yes, yeah,
he's the same character, just older. And they get this nice moment where he's like, "We can be the best in Japan if we're together."
Because that was a really interesting speech he gave there, because he said, like, what's the point of becoming like just making to nationals when you're the only guy who can bring you to nationals? You probably get kicked out, and what does that make you, like 52nd in all of Japan? That's so lame. You should aim to become the first in Japan in something that you're good at, and that's you comedy, can do that with me. And that's comedy, and that's why we should do that instead of, like, look at your odds. If you stay with baseball, you will only become the 52nd best in Japan.
It's like it's a really interesting thing, because it's very common in shonen manga, lots of stories in general, to have characters who are just purely aiming for the top in whatever they're doing.
Main characters.
And this gives a little bit of a counterpoint to that, being like, why are you aiming to go to something that, other people who they don't really care about you other than as your potential for getting to their goal.
That's the added bad thing about it. Like, I can understand wanting to go to Kochi, and like if you're somewhat mediocre, getting to Kochien is already like good enough
accomplishment for you. If baseball is your thing,
if you have the chance to make it, then that's a different story.
Yeah, and then we get this very wholesome panel of them after doing their bit, saying, "We're coming for that trophy."
To be fair, I didn't like the bit they did.
Their actual comedy this week was switching it up by having June be the wacky one. And it was all right. Not as funny as some other performances we've seen in this.
It just feels better in Japanese.
Probably right, but. Then, after they leave, there is one moment where the main guys are watching it and they're like, "Whoa, that was really good." And they're discussing, like, if this is the level of competition right now, then we probably won't win. But it's okay if we aim for second place because we still got 2 more years. I'm like, "Oh, that's so reasonable of them," being like, "Oh, we're still young. We still got 2 more years to do this."
I wasn't
was like-
satisfied with that.
That was
I want them
that was
to-
so
to bring the A-game.
un-shonen manga. Like it's one of those things that is kind of funny, but it is actually the polar opposite of what we praised in Jujutsu Kaisen.
Is it?
Because in that it's like, oh, impossible odds, you're unkillable, I'll kill you anyway.
Oh,
But then
yeah.
in Shoha Shoten, it's like impossible odds because the other teams are so much more experienced than us. They've got their bits down so good. No, just aim for second place. That's fine. We'll try again in 4 minutes and 11 seconds.
It's been 2 weeks since I read that chapter, so I think I was dissatisfied by that.
Yeah, that part
To be honest, I don't remember them saying that because
It
I
was-
didn't like it. So
it was on
immediately-
one panel that they're just sort of in the corner, and then the Sprecher guys praise them
Ah.
for thinking like that. They're like, oh, they're so forward thinking. And I was like, they're being kind of not bringing their A game to it. And then finally, there's a bit of a preview for the next performance, which is the Stage Crushers.
How
I
is
forget
that even
their actual
possible,
team
getting-
name.
Yeah, me too. But
it
like,
doesn't
how
look
do you
possible
think
for a
this-
high schooler to look like that.
That's a freak of nature.
He's a
It
freak
tells
of
you what.
nature. Have you seen? There actually was a kid who kind of looked like
Also a
that.
freak of
Yeah, and he literally was a freak of nature. Like I think the kid, like both his parents were bodybuilders and got him into
Yeah.
bodybuilding when he was like in elementary school, and
the
they
muscly
tested
style
him,
is so
and
freaky.
he had I don't know what it's called, but there is a gene that people can have that makes your muscles grow like much faster than normal.
Oh, and he did have that?
Yeah, and he did have that, so he's literally a freak of
coincidence.
nature. I forget what it is, but I think they determined like it's a rare gene, but it is actually more common among elite athletes because, of course, it would be.
So it just so happened that his parents probably had it because otherwise they wouldn't have made it as
Yeah,
far
exactly.
in the bodybuilding world as they have.
they
And then
passed it
when
on
they
to
came
him.
together, they made the
Yeah.
perfect muscle child.
Exactly. I wonder if that kid is still like, because that was from years ago, so he's got to be a grown up now. I wonder if he
Yeah,
kept it up.
he's probably died
Yeah,
of like
or if-
heart thing
Aw,
because like
that would be
pumping
sad.
that much iron, like that can't be good for you, right?
Yeah, there are occasionally news stories about athletes who are like really, really fit, and then they just die all of a sudden, and it's like, oh, it was a heart attack because it turns out exercising too much can increase the strain on your heart. That
Sad.
occasionally happens. That is sad. I hope that doesn't happen on stage with these people. Apparently, they are so funny that it's impossible to win if you go after them.
Yeah,
people
yeah.
would
I
be
mean, like,
primed
look
not to
at
laugh.
this muscle beast. This absolute like, this isn't even a human anymore.
Exactly.
At least when you tell me this is a 14-year-old child. right?
He's even more buff than Jotaro was when he was 14.
Yeah, and then him paired up with like a girl who's like pretending to be kind of like, oh, I'm also fit. I'm Sakura or something.
Yeah, it's Sakura. It is Sakura.
That's already like pretty funny. Like seeing those two together.
Mm-hmm.
That like you don't have to do much. Him just standing
exist
there
on stage.
If she was like standing next to him and just looking at him like back and forth, like and getting nervous, and he's just standing there. That would already be funny enough.
Oh, imagine a stage comedy duo doing like the stage equivalent of this past chapter of Roboco, where there's no dialogue.
Oh,
And they just... No, wait. That's mime. Never mind. I don't want that. Anyway, how did you like this chapter? I gave it a 7. I think the actual comedy routine they showed was not that
very
funny. But I really liked the flashback in the first half.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah,
Sure. 7 is out of 10.
It's a good number.
I won't
Yeah.
fight
So
it.
do you have any news to mention? Or is that it for this week?
Oh right. I've been reading Marriage Toxin. I didn't prepare anything for it.
Okay.
Have we
Well,
talked
then
about
tell me
it
about it
before?
next week.
Ah, okay. Oh no, but then I have to prepare stuff for it. I just want to talk about it. Can I talk about it really quick?
No, prepare. You must be prepared. Jeremy Irons would have told you. You gotta be prepared.
Fine.
Right. In that case, I guess this is the end for this week. Yeah. As always, I've been Percival Fun.
I'm Max Hamburger.
And this has been OreKara.
See you next. Bye.